As the family huddled together within the circle of protection, their breaths shallow and eyes wide with fear, Babalawo Alaba remained calm. His gaze lingered on the scorched mark where Lola had disappeared. He knew this wasn't the end, only a temporary victory. With a deep sigh, he turned to the family. "She will return," he said in a grave tone, "but this time she will answer to the truth." The priest knelt and drew intricate symbols in the dirt, his staff glowing faintly under the moonlight. He chanted words in a forgotten tongue, summoning the energies of the spirit realm. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the compound, extinguishing the nearby torches and plunging everything into an eerie darkness. The family gasped as the priest's body began to glow faintly, his form flickering like a candle. "Stay within the circle," he warned, his voice distant and echoing. Then, before anyone could stop him, Babalawo Alaba vanished, his essence dissolving into thin air. Moments passed in stunned silence. The family waited, their ears straining for any sound. Then, a low hum began to resonate from the earth itself, growing louder until the ground beneath the circle shook. A sharp crack split the air, and in a flash of light, Babalawo Alaba reappeared, holding a limp and defeated Lola by the wrist. Her once fierce eyes were now wide with terror, her body trembling under the priest's firm grip. The family recoiled as she was forced to kneel before them, her head bowed in submission. "Speak," Babalawo Alaba commanded, his voice thunderous. "Who sent you to torment this family?" Lola's lips quivered, but she said nothing, her silence defiant. The priest raised his staff, and a searing light emanated from its tip, bathing her in its brilliance. She screamed, writhing against an invisible force that seemed to claw at her very essence. "I will ask you one last time," Babalawo Alaba said, his tone cold and unyielding. "Who sent you?" Lola sobbed, her voice breaking as she finally cried out. "It was Adegan. Adegan, the wealthy merchant. He paid me to curse them, to drive them into ruin. He wants their land, their legacy." The family gasped in shock, the name of a trusted neighbor now revealed as the architect of their suffering. Babalawo Alaba nodded solemnly, lowering his staff as Lola collapsed to the ground, her energy completely drained. "Justice will be served," the priest declared, his eyes glowing with resolve. "But first, we must purify this land and ensure no curse lingers." As the family began to process the betrayal, Babalawo Alaba turned his gaze toward the horizon. The battle was not over, and the forces that sought to destroy the family would not relent so easily. The air hung heavy with tension as Babalawo Alaba paced around the circle, his staff still glowing faintly. Lola's confession lingered like a bitter taste, and the family remained silent, grappling with the weight of betrayal. The priest, however, was far from done. "Adegan will not stop," Alaba said, his voice low but commanding. "Men like him hide behind wealth and influence, thinking they are untouchable. But even his power has its limits." He knelt beside Lola, who now lay sprawled on the ground, her breath shallow and ragged. With a flick of his wrist, Alaba traced a symbol on her forehead, one that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Lola flinched but was too weak to resist. "This mark binds you to the truth," he said. "You will guide me to Adegan's secrets. There will be no hiding, no escape." Lola whimpered but nodded reluctantly. "He keeps his charms, his dark objects, buried beneath the old baobab tree in his compound. That's where he stores his power," she whispered. "Destroy them, and he'll be vulnerable." Alaba's expression darkened. "Very well. But you will come with me. Your role in this treachery is not yet over." He turned to the family. "Stay within the circle until dawn. No harm can reach you here. I will confront Adegan and ensure this evil ends tonight." The father of the family, a stout man named Mr. Tund, stepped forward. "Babalawo, you have done so much for us already. Let me come with you. I cannot stand idly by while our enemy is confronted." Alaba shook his head firmly. "Your duty is to protect your family. The spirits have chosen me for this battle. I must go alone with her. He gestured toward Tola, who struggled to her feet under his stern gaze. The priest drew another series of symbols in the dirt, and the air around him shimmered with power. With a wave of his staff, he and Lola vanished into the night, leaving the family huddled together in the protective circle. They reappeared at the edge of Adegan's compound, the air thick with the stench of decayed offerings and burnt incense. The baobab tree loomed in the distance, its twisted branches clawing at the sky. Alaba's staff glowed brighter, sensing the malevolent energy that radiated from the tree. Lead me to it, Alaba ordered, his tone sharp. Lola hesitated but obeyed, her steps faltering as they approached the tree. As they neared, the ground seemed to pulse with unnatural life. Strange whispers filled the air, voices that tugged at Lola's mind and tempted her to flee. But Alaba's presence was a shield, his unwavering determination silencing the voices as they reached the base of the tree. Beneath its gnarled roots lay a patch of freshly turned soil. Alaba struck the ground with his staff, and the earth trembled, splitting open to reveal a small chest wrapped in dark cloth. The air around the chest crackled with energy, and Lola recoiled as a wave of fear washed over her. These are his fetishes, Alaba muttered, his eyes narrowing. He raised his staff high, chanting in a voice that echoed with the power of ancient spirits. The glow intensified, and a bolt of light shot from the staff, striking the chest and shattering it into splinters. A deafening roar erupted from the tree, and a black mist poured from the shattered chest, twisting and writhing as it tried to escape. But Alaba was ready. He struck the ground again, creating a barrier that trapped the mist. With one final chant, the mist dissipated into the night, leaving only silence. Lola fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. It's done, she whispered. He has no more power. But Alaba wasn't convinced. This was only the beginning. Adegan will feel the loss of his strength, but he will not surrender without a fight. He must face justice before the community. With that, they turned toward Adegan's home, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. The battle was far from over, but the tides had turned, and Alaba was ready to see it through to the end. Babalawo Alaba and Lola approached Adegan's compound, just as the first light of dawn painted the horizon in fiery hues. The air was heavy with tension, and the compound, usually bustling with servants, lay eerily silent. Alaba's staff glowed faintly, a sign that the evil within still lingered. They reached the large iron gate, and with a simple wave of his staff, Alaba sent it creaking open. Inside, Adegan stood waiting, clad in fine robes, his face twisted in fury. His hands trembled, clutching a curved dagger etched with arcane symbols. He had felt the severing of his power and the destruction of his talismans, and his pride burned hotter than his fear. You dare step onto my land? Adegan spat, his voice low and venomous. Do you think your petty tricks can stop me? Alaba stepped forward, his gaze piercing. Your charms are gone, Adegan. Your power lies shattered at the roots of your cursed tree. You are nothing now but a man, and your sins will be laid bare before this village. Adegan laughed, though his eyes darted nervously. Do you think I relied only on those baubles? I still have my will, my wealth, and my determination. That is more than enough to crush you. He lunged, the dagger aimed straight at Alaba's chest. But the priest was prepared. With a swift motion, he struck the ground with his staff. A burst of light erupted, sending Adegan sprawling backward. The dagger flew from his hand, landing harmlessly in the dirt. Before Adegan could recover, Alaba raised his staff high, chanting in a voice that resonated with ancient power. The earth beneath Adegan's feet began to tremble, and from the ground rose the faint, translucent forms of those who had suffered under his schemes. Farmers driven to ruin, families cursed and broken, and even his late brother, whose land he had stolen through treachery. The spirits surrounded him, their mournful eyes reflecting his guilt. Adegan screamed, clutching his head as their whispers filled the air. Why? They asked. Why did you betray us? Why did you destroy lives for your greed? No! Adegan shrieked, collapsing to his knees. I did it for power, for control. I was weak, and I couldn't bear to be seen as anything less. Alaba's voice cut through the cacophony. You have confessed, Adegan. Now you will face justice. Not from me, but from the people you have wronged. With a final chant, Alaba lowered his staff, and the spirits vanished, leaving Adegan sobbing in the dirt. By now, the commotion had drawn the attention of the villagers, who gathered at the gates. Whispers of what they saw spread quickly. Adegan, the mighty merchant, reduced to a trembling shadow of himself. Babalawo Alaba turned to the crowd. His voice calm yet commanding. This man sought to destroy a family through curses and treachery. His crimes are many, and his power is gone. What happens to him now lies in your hands. The villagers, enraged by the revelation, surged forward, their voices a mix of anger and sorrow. Adegan begged for mercy, but the villagers decided his fate: exile. He would leave the land he had defiled, stripped of his wealth and power, to live in isolation for the rest of his days. As the sun fully rose, the family whose suffering had started it all emerged from their home, tears of relief streaming down their faces. They knelt before Babalawo Alaba, their gratitude evident. You have saved us, Mr. Tund, the father said. How can we ever repay you? Alaba smiled, placing a hand on Mr. Tund's shoulder. Continue to live justly. Protect one another. And remember, evil thrives only when we turn a blind eye. With that, he turned and walked away. His staff no longer glowing but his presence still commanding. The village watched him disappear into the forest, knowing they had witnessed something extraordinary. As for Lola, she remained in the village, dedicating her life to atonement. With Alaba's guidance, she used her knowledge of the spiritual to help others, becoming a protector rather than a tormentor. The village, once overshadowed by fear and greed, began to heal. And though Babalawo Alaba was seldom seen again, his name became a legend, a reminder that even in the darkest times, justice will prevail.